Okay, so the other day I saw this Instagram reel where basically there was like this lady that was learning how to drive, and the reel was from the perspective of the driving instructor. And in the reel, this lady was messing up like really badly. Like she literally couldn't stay in the lane. She was like hitting random objects. Essentially very basic driving concepts just didn't make sense to her. And it was like a real big problem. The driver instructor was freaking out the entire time. Yeah, it was real bad. She didn't even know like how to brake when she saw a car. She couldn't see the car in front of her. So it was like a very basic Instagram reel, nothing too special. But here's the thing. I can say that I had somewhat of a relatively similar experience. Not as bad, but like driving didn't really like go with me. Like it just didn't fully make sense to me sometimes. And I mean, I got my driver's license. Now I'm like full driving safely and it's alright now. But when I was first learning, some certain things just didn't really like click with me. I learned how to drive on a mechanic, not an automatic, so like the clutch didn't fully make sense to me. There were a lot of times where I had to pay attention to like a lot of different things, and I would just miss certain things. The things that didn't make sense to me were very reasonable to me, but to the instructor, not so much. Like, he would constantly get mad that I couldn't like understand certain like basic concepts. He was like dumbfounded at the fact that I could do certain things easily, but like others that were supposed to be easy were difficult for me. And yeah, it was just a shitty situation. And on top of all of this, I failed my tests, like driving tests, twice before I succeeded, which isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things. Like in the place where I live, people on average just usually fail like once. But yeah, then watching this reel made me like reflect on that time. And here's the thing, when I watched this reel, I was like, I had the same reaction as most people. I was like, oh my god, what the hell, how can someone not know how to drive that much, you know? Because like I was bad at driving at the beginning, but like not this bad. This was like excruciatingly bad. Like this person would not have survived 10 minutes in a car alone. So yeah, I was shocked by the reel, as you should be. But then that had me thinking like, okay, when I was driving, I was making like ridiculous mistakes, and the instructor from the reel had the same reaction as my instructor at certain points. So I started thinking like, okay, to me, when I was making those mistakes, to me those were like obvious mistakes. While to the instructor, my instructor, they were supposed to be just obvious things that I understood. Like the mistakes were stupid. And the thing is, this is the same dichotomy that's going on in this reel. Like the instructor in that reel and the lady that's driving, they are also the same as me and my instructor were. Like, I'm sure to this lady, these mistakes that she's making aren't like obvious mistakes that like for some reason she's still making. Like to her, this is difficult, right? Even like the simplest parts. So then that had me thinking like, okay, if that's the case, were people from the outside, when I was learning how to drive, were they looking at me and my instructor and thinking the same thing that I'm thinking about this woman? Like, were they thinking, oh my god, how the fuck do you not know how to do this? Again, our mistakes were not on the same level, but there were certain mistakes that like seemed pretty obvious and easy to understand to the instructor at least. So I'm like, like were my parents and the people that I was telling this to, would they react to my driving the same way that I'm reacting to this lady? Like, would they be like, oh my god, this person is stupid, what the hell? And that had me like really like kind of embarrassed and worried, because I didn't realize this at the time. And because, okay, here's the thing with my mistakes that I made in driving, I knew what I was supposed to do, but just like in the moment I just couldn't execute it. Like I didn't have the skill or the capacity to execute the right thing during my driving, even though I like knew what it was in my brain. So to me it was like, oh, it was just like lackadaisical. It was like, oh, I'm gonna learn eventually. Like this is just an acquired skill. I know what I'm supposed to do, I just have to learn how to do it, you know? So to me it was just all simple and easy, but I'm just wondering, like, it'd be pretty embarrassing if to the people on the outside this was like me failing at something really simple. Especially to like my parents. Like, were they disappointed in me? Like I wasn't getting that from them, but like, would they have had this reaction of like shock and disappointment had they been there to see my driving at the time? And it's like, okay, again, me and this lady are not on the same level. And another thing is, I feel like with me, my problem was like with my motor skill. I knew what I was supposed to do, I just can't execute it like with my body, with my motor skills. With this woman, I feel like both of these things are the problem. Like sometimes she really just doesn't understand certain concepts that should be common sense, you know? It is an intelligence thing for her, a little bit. For me, it was motor skills, for her, it was intelligence skills. Nonetheless, we both had like certain skills that like weren't trained, which then put us in a position, in the same position, where people from the outside would look at us and think we're stupid because we couldn't execute a basic function. And so then this is the part where like I really like generalized it, and it had me start thinking about life differently. I was like, okay, you know, you see these people on the internet and all over the world that you just look at and you see them doing certain things and you're like, this person is stupid. Like, how are they doing this or not doing this? Like, you really gotta be bottom of the barrel of society to do this thing that they're doing. And now it just had me thinking like, okay, what if all these people just have certain things, like maybe skills, that to them just don't make sense, or like they just don't have it in them to do this thing. They don't have it in them to execute certain things the way that most normal people do. Because it's like, if that's the case, I don't know, things change quite a bit. Here's the thing, when I was driving, one major thing for me was like, a lot of people would like yell at me or like, you know, critique me, if that's the nicest word I could use, hoping that certain things would get through to my head. And like, this isn't the worst method to go about it, but to me it was just like, y'all, I just don't have this thing that you all have that I'm supposed to have in order to execute this basic function. Like, I just felt like there was something that was missing, that someone or somehow I was supposed to have or get to do the thing. And instead of that, people were just like kind of yelling at me, hoping that it was gonna change. It was like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and the whole time the round hole was desperately looking for just like a round peg to fit in it. This all just kind of led me to a point where I realized that a lot of intolerance that we have towards other people, or even other groups of people, comes from this idea that like, just because you don't have some skill that most other people do, you're somehow inferior, when in reality we should put a lot more effort and a lot more focus into trying to get this person to come to this skill, to gain this skill. If we did that, we would end up with like a society and just every single person in the world having these skills and no intolerance towards anybody. When in reality, just these people with a lack of skill continue not having the skill, and all the while there's intolerance towards them. And it just goes to show how far having an open mind can get you.